So awareness is really, really key in mindfulness, but it is just a small part of it. That awareness is, we're using that awareness to notice different activities, different things that come up within the body and the mind. So we are aware, but mindfulness is that moment before the cognition starts. So it's a little tricky. You know, if we're thinking about, you know, if we see an object, you know, like just see an object and then we're examining it, that's fine. We can be aware of this object. But once we start saying, you know, I should have one of those, or you know, this is, if that looks like an older model, you know, there's a newer model, you know, and then there's no mindfulness anymore. It's just, it happens that fast.
So would it be before perception where you, or maybe I'm using the wrong word, where you see it and you're aware of it, but before you start thinking, I see a silver shiny circle, oh, that's a timer, right?
Yeah. It's like as soon as the self gets involved.
Oh, okay.
You know, there's different ways to describe it, but yeah, you know, as soon as the ego gets involved in any way, then that mindfulness is gone. It's almost like being able to imagine that you're a child again, and you're completely open, you know, to an experience. One teacher was showing a group of us. She had a chair, and she acted like she was a little child, you know. And she picked up the chair, and she was looking, and she rolled on the floor and was looking underneath the chair, and you know, it was like. But then it's like as soon as an adult comes by and says, you know, get up off there, leave that chair alone, put that chair over there, you know, all of a sudden it has, that chair is separate, you know, it's a separate thing, and it's not a part of the play of things. So that mindfulness is, you know, kind of drawn out of a person like that, you know, before the thinking and before the, you know, the analytical thought comes in. And of course there's nothing wrong with that, but we should recognize that we're not, that mindfulness is pretty much out of the window at that point. But we can, and so for that reason, mindfulness needs work. And that's why we meditate. You know, we have these practices where we can use concentration, just like what the Buddha did. We use concentration to, you know, examine what's coming up and how we feel, and you know, the aspect of the body, feelings, mind states, mind objects. You know, these are the areas that the Buddha instructed us to. You know, he said, why don't you take a look at these things, and then perhaps you'll understand, you know, mindfulness to a more deeper level. So in the Anapanasati and you know, the teaching of the Satipatthana Sutra, these are teachings that Buddha had directly related to meditation. And in that, that's where he mentioned the body. You know, we can use the body for meditation, and feelings, and mind states, and mind objects. So just real quickly, and if you read the chapter in the book, you read about that, and that's why that chapter is so long. You know, did everybody read the chapter? Okay. Most people.
Write a whole book on it.
You what?
You could write a whole book on it.
Oh yeah, and many people have.
It's a big chapter.
Many people have. It's hard to write about mindfulness without writing about concentration, though. So usually, if you find a mindfulness book, there's, you know, a great deal about concentration in there as well. And you know, some people say, and I think I mentioned it in the book, that the rather than, you know, separating the two, it's like the mindfulness and concentration are the same, two ends of the same stick. That stick being our meditation practice. And so when we look at mindfulness, and when Buddha gave his instructions on mindfulness, the first thing he talked about was the body. And you know, we did some body scanning and that kind of thing, but he wanted us to be, you know, to use the body, since it's a part of us, for our meditation, and to be mindful of it. And so every kind of fine nuance that comes up, we can shine that light of awareness on it, but the whole thing is not to get attached to any of this, to be able to let go of our attachment and just see things for what they are, and that's the other part of the definition, the unforgetfulness of realities which appear. These realities are the truth for us, not the thinking mind. Like we're sitting in meditation, oh, my stomach hurts, or let's just say there's a little twinge in the stomach. Oh, what is that? Is that gas, or what is that? I don't recognize that feel. Oh, I bet I have cancer. I think I have a year. I have a year to live. In the whole the maybe 6 months. What do I do with my time? And just goes on and on and on. That's how it can be in meditation, and that's how it can be in real life too. When we start believing, our thoughts, and so the whole idea in meditation is to be able to, not to catch the mind from getting sticky on any of that stuff, and not only, and then when we go from the body, we go into feelings, and feelings are a little different than the Western terminology of feelings. The feelings in Buddhism are pleasant and unpleasant, or good and bad. Just the almost the white and black of everything. And the reason that is just for to make the definition so simple that we can be recognized. And so every time we see or hear or smell or have anything with our senses, our touch, particularly the five senses. Again, the seeing and the hearing, smelling, tasting, and the touching, but also the thoughts. Every time these things are fired, there's a feeling associated with it. A lot of times we don't recognize it, and those are the Buddha decided to call those neutral feelings in our Western language, neutral. But when we look at feelings, like we're drawn to this pleasantness, or we're repelled from this unpleasantness, and as soon as we have an unpleasantness, we try to shake that and go towards something pleasant. I mean, when we really look at it, if we don't do that, then for the most part we're pretty much okay, with everything. But when we get things get sticky again, we have an attachment towards the good and we avert the bad. Too much of that can be a problem. Now that's natural and normal for us to do that. Who wants to, go towards pain and suffering and not go towards the pleasures in life? It's just a very natural thing. But we have to be aware that that's happening, so that we aren't, directed by that constantly. Because for the most part we are. And the truth of the matter is that we don't have to. We don't have to be drawn towards these more pleasurable things and repelled from the negative things. And we can ideally prove that to ourselves when we sit in meditation. Not having preference for anything. Not wanting things to be different from what they currently are. And so if we are resting in this state of non-preference, we'll call it, and then all of a sudden we get pulled into something, or we get averted from something, we should be able to notice that and recognize that as being, that's our true nature. But the sad thing about it is our lives are directed like that. We're like a ball in a pinball machine, drawn towards the magnet and bounced off the bumper all the time. Boom, boom, boom. And then if we let that happen, who's in charge? You know, just the raw emotions of want, you know, of good and bad. If we let that happen without being mindful, we'll be pretty much like a bunch of adult spoiled brats, you know, and unfortunately we pretty much are already. The idea of not being aware of why we want something, you know, why we're drawn towards this thing, and do we really need it? Kind of going back to you give a mouse a cookie, you know, and be careful what you wish for, you know, and why. First of all, why are you wishing for it, or why do you want it in the first place? So feelings are both worldly and non-worldly. And notice I went like that and like this, because worldly is everything out there that our senses connect with, and non-worldly is everything inside, like a pleasurable feeling. And the Buddha said that the pleasure that we get from meditation, in even states of concentration, he said that those are the feelings that we should cultivate, that we should try to increase. You know, they're very natural, not drug related or anything like that. You know, and the endorphins are firing and stuff like that. It's very natural, pleasurable, you know, experience to be meditating. But and every time that we see or smell or hear, touch, taste something, and there's pleasure behind it, we should really be aware of why. You know, what is happening there? Do we want to go towards that, or do we want to be repelled by these unpleasurable things? Those are feelings. There's four of them. Again, body, then we'll go into feelings, and then now our mind states or something. I think we talked about them a little bit earlier, but mind states are often, I refer to them as like moods or emotions, because it can be the accumulation of many different feelings. You know, a lot of pleasurable feelings will set off a state, you know, that will be very happy or very desirous, or you know, a state can be positive or negative. States are just about anything that we typically label as a feeling in the West. I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel good, you know, I feel tired. You know, that could actually be a state. You know, I'm worried, you know, I'm depressed, I'm restless, you know, I'm angry, I'm fearful. You know, these are all different states that we can experience. And we don't have to claim them and identify with these states. I mean, they can pass right through us without us actually even reacting to them, because they're constantly changing all the time. And even if we know somebody that gets angry, you know, that gets really angry fast, that you know that they're not like that all the time. Sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're angry, you know, and that can happen with us. We have all these moods and emotions, you know, just changing. And again, a lot of that is, you know, just very natural. And even if we are the most even-keeled person in the world, there is still going to be some of this happening, you know. So it is very natural. One way we can check our mindfulness is ask ourselves, what mind state am I experiencing at this moment? Are you doing that? Ask yourself. You don't have to do it out loud. But what mind state are you experiencing at this moment? And you're immediately mindful, because you're going within, looking at it. And so we put a label on that state, and then it's changing already. You know, it's nothing is static, especially a state, a mood or emotion. And so we can react to these states, or we can just let them just watch them change. We are not bottling anything up inside. We're not thinking, oh, I gotta, there's the old belief that, I gotta get this anger out of me, so I just gotta, tear somebody's head off. That's just, but it's not exactly how it works. If we can get very good at being the watcher of this, being the one that perceives these things, and kind of like stepping back and watching it all happen. We don't have to react to the moods or emotions. Sometimes we want, we may want to. Some of the states, the states of, of love and joy and blissfulness are, wonderful things. And, for us to not really share those with ourselves in a way. A lot of times we might feel like we're robbing ourselves, but we want to be able to be so aware of what we're doing through mindfulness that we're being kind to ourselves, not getting into anything that we shouldn't be getting into, basically. Mind states are something that and feelings, the mind states, you can talk to a person that's really into mind states, and then there might be another person sitting next to him that's really into the body, like using the body for meditation or using mind states for meditation. So it's interesting. And that feelings are very much like sensations. I have this pleasantness or this unpleasantness, so it's kind of like the connecting point between the body and the mind in many ways, because we can have sensations within the body, and we can also have these feelings that are very, very mental, so it's almost like sensations within the mind, like when we see something pleasurable, we have this feeling of pleasantness, but it could also be within the body. So it's almost like feelings are that bridge from the body to the mind. So body, feelings, mind states, and then mind objects are the other area that the Buddha really recommended that we take a look at. And these mind objects, sometimes called the dharmas or dharma. And when people hear the word dharma, they usually refer to teachings, like the teachings of the Buddha, for example. And so mind objects are, pretty much these lessons in life that we have. But usually, not usually, but they should be the absolute truth. And these mind objects can also be used for contemplation, for our meditation practice, if we like. Contemplation is when you sit on a subject and kind of dwell on it and don't let the mind go beyond that. And mind objects, or these dharmas, the ones that are referred to in the book and in a lot of the Buddhist teachings, are actually Buddha's insights that he had. These insights are the truth that came up for him, and they're the same truths that will come up for us if they haven't already. That's why there's such a connection with the everyday, with all people and Buddhism, because of these insights, so that we can share the mind of the Buddha, because we do have the mind of the Buddha. We have the same insights. That's why the Buddha said that even if you don't understand anything, and if you meditate every day, eventually you'll understand it through these practices, because of the insights that we will gain on our own. So we don't have to read a wall of books. As a matter of fact, that might not help at all. We have to experience these things for ourselves. Insights are the experiential understandings that we obtain on our own. Things that come up. And so these are the four areas. The Buddha said that these are, when it comes to meditation, mindfulness, the body, feelings, mind states, and mind objects are the things that we should be looking at, within our meditation first, and then outside of meditation, I always refer to as mindfulness as the byproduct, the beneficial byproduct of meditation. To be able to operate and move around in the world in a mindful way. To be mindful. But mindfulness takes some. It operates through concentration and what I call stick-to-itiveness, which is a real word, and so we have to stay with the program. We have to remember to be mindful. There's that memory thing. If we don't remember to be mindful, we'll just kind of slip back to our old way of being. That's why a lot of people wear, things like this, just to remind themselves. There's other uses for this too, but to remind ourselves to be mindful. Sometimes we have, sometimes certain books are hard to get rid of because they remind us, to be mindful. Every time we look at that book on the shelf, it reminds us, even though we haven't read it for a while, perhaps. Different things, for different people as far as remembering to be mindful. It's very important. So in our meditation practice, we sit and we become very concentrated, hopefully. The mind settles down, and then what is happening is the mind's actually getting ready, to see these things arise for us. We're not getting sticky with any of it, so the instructions are the same, that we understand our meditation object, which is, if we're using the breath, and we're focusing on the breath. When something comes up, sensation in the body. Well, first of all, when we're focusing on the breath, we're actually using the body as for our meditation right there. But we might notice a sensation in the body or visualizations that might come up. It might be something pleasurable or unpleasurable. It might be a kink in the neck. Oh, that's not pleasurable, or something like that, or even a pleasurable feeling within the body. So these feelings we can be aware of in our meditation, eyes closed, and of course we can always ask, what mood or emotion am I experiencing, and why do I have that in me? I mean, seemingly it's in me now, and what am I observing? Always observing what is being seen here. And then also, in the Anapanasati, the Buddha changed his wording from in such a way from using these things, using feelings in the body and mind states. When he got into mind objects, he used the word contemplating mind objects. So he used a little bit different word in such a way that there's a little bit more cognition happening there when we're looking at these mind objects, because there's a little bit behind them. Mind object, the very first one that comes to mind is that everything is impermanent. And what does that impermanence teach us? If everything's impermanent, why are we looking for happiness in all these impermanent objects? It can't be found. We're looking for permanent happiness in something that's impermanent. So why are we even looking? And it goes on and on. It's like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?